Yeah, and I think we actually skipped over this part. The how they would change oversight of the police, right? They bring back you know DOJ investigations of particularly bad police departments. The consent decrees they use to sort of reform those things. Stop giving military hardware to police departments. Collect better data on police violence. Body cameras for everyone. Limit the qualified immunity of police. Bernie would ban facial recognition software. Ban asset forfeiture, where they could just take your money without convicting you of anything, or your property. And
or you have any people have fines and get into debt even if they were acquitted, right?
Yeah,
get rid of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Or
get
fees,
rid of
court fees, all those things.
Debtor's prison. Yeah, and change the training of the police. Move it away from violent confrontation where, it's thinking it's like so many police forces are sort of like occupying soldiers in a lot of ways.
Right.
And being more about actual peacekeepers, where you're focused on de-escalation, not getting your gun out at the first sign of anything. And, then as we said, go really building out more detective stuff, and thinking of the state's job. It's like they say that the classic slogan is punishment should be, to be an effective deterrent, it should be swift, certain, and severe, right? And that the first two are much more important than the third one, because criminals, are not really good about thinking about 20 years down the road. And so, just catching the criminals, how even long the sentence is, like from what I've seen, whether a murder sentence is 5 years or 50 years makes almost no difference for deterrence. The important thing is for the state, that to just relaying the logic here of Bernie and Warren again, the state needs to be the one that adjudicates these type of disputes. Be like when there's when someone kills someone else, the state needs to be the one that says we're going to have an impartial system that, as close as we can get, an impartial system is going to catch the offender and it's going to punish them, according to however we set. And that way you don't get Hatfield and McCoy type shit. I mean, that's a lot of gang violence is, somebody gets killed and somebody, it's like tit for tat, tit for tat. And this is the argument of that book I was mentioning, the Ghetto Side by Jill Leovy, is that, the reason why there are so many murders of young black men in a lot of communities in this country is that they almost never are punished. And so, there you have sort of like incipient warlordism happening in certain communities.
Yeah. And let's be clear, like, gangs are a symptom of institutional failure,
Yep.
right? Like, there's something that rise up because we failed as a state and society in many ways. We have too many guns. We don't have enough basic necessities being taken care of. We don't have fulfilling ways of life that are made possible. And there's a number of things you said there that I want to talk about because this book you're talking to, of course, is in some ways speaking to both the social contract theorists Hobbes and Locke, who are very different in important ways, but they both thought that the state is supposed to mete out justice, so that for Hobbes, there's not a war of all against all, in this, what you call vigilante justice way. Although for Hobbes, there's no justice in the state of nature. Justice arises, right? It arises. It's constructed by the state. That's justice is, what the powers that be say it is through the laws they enact and enforce. And Locke, of course, is very different. He has a natural law, sense of, transcendent justice that can be abrogated by the way the state functions. But also for Locke, you escape the state of nature in part to have, like you said, he focuses on the impartial, quote unquote, the single solitary administrative state that is meting out justice instead of, individuals who in the state of nature for Locke, you're supposed to be the one that each person is responsible to mete out justice, right? Anyway, there's a number of things that they both talk about, and there's some degree of truth to both of them, but, and I think Brad Evans long ago talked about this, there is a harm in most discussions of these things that makes it seem like the naturally violent people are the citizens and the state is the beneficent keeper of law and order. When the state is doing a lot, if not most, of this violence, and so much of these reforms are about preventing the state violence upon its citizens.
Yeah.
Right. And so in other words, I know you like Humphrey Bogart, and I'm down with like good detective work and all that. But, and I of course agree with you that deterrence is a bit of a myth, at least with the length of sentences. But also, how do we really ultimately prevent and deter the harms we do to each other? I don't think ever state punishment is going to be how we really do that. And in fact, the trade-off, of course, that the activists worry about is that in pretending to really do that, the state will be inflicting trauma and harm. And we don't really know how many people were prevented from doing crimes by being locked up, but we do know that we've traumatized and brutalized those people. So we know for sure those people were harmed, right?
Yeah.
So I do think there's a reason to be really careful about even thinking about the state as being good or at solving. And when I say solving crime, I don't mean figuring out who did an assault. I mean solving crime, right? Like in terms of really drastically getting to the root of things.
Yeah, I guess, I have somewhat unsettled thoughts on this, but I'm was quite influenced by something that I didn't see but happened in a village near me when I lived in South Africa, where the criminal justice system is in a state of kind of collapse, and there are tons of murders and almost none of them are solved. And one thing the thing that happened was a guy escaped from jail, and he came back to his home village, and he murdered his girlfriend. And the local villagers were so furious that they found him and they lynched him. And I think that, it's a difficult question, right? Because, I want to think that everybody can be, a decent, upstanding citizen who would never murder anyone else. Like maybe with a few sort of like people who are totally pathological. I think that should be possible for virtually everyone. But, I've been, victimized by crime before. Never anything bad like that, but I recognize that surge of hatred, that fury that you feel. It's like somebody stole my shit, got mugged, and it's like you feel so mad, and that it's like that. It's like, this is what being a conservative must be like all the time. And
except there was no inciting incident other than like the hatred of others.
yeah, right. Or you just watch too much television. But, so like my sense is that you kind of can't get away without at least some sort of nominal punishment. Like the Anders Breivik is stuck for 20 years playing his video games in a sort of like Motel 6 level of prison after shooting like almost 80 children, part of a sort of Nazi pogrom against this, socialist political party. Well,
look, but can you agree that like throwing people in cages doesn't have to do with any, like, couldn't it be, okay, there was a violence done here, let's think restorative justice. Let's put people together, make them whole. Think about, hey man, what made you do that harm? Let's try to remove that cause from happening again. Let's figure out, like, in a way that isn't just, well, let's just cage people. That'll solve things.